Allow me to recount the tale of my brief encounter with an individual named Happy. It was back in 2013 when I found myself employed at a cannabis dispensary nestled in Venice Beach, a mere stone's throw away from the bustling boardwalk. Interestingly, a significant portion of our clientele consisted of unhoused individuals. On occasion, we'd encounter individuals in the midst of severe psychosis, their attempts to enter marked by chaotic screams or incomprehensible utterances. In such cases, our security protocols prevented their entry. However, for those who arrived equipped with the essential trio of medical documents, identification, and cash, access was granted without a hitch. We upheld a compassionate initiative whereby we packaged grams of leftover shake from jar bottoms and handed them out absolutely free. A single unit per person per day was the rule, and this offering garnered swift notoriety along the boardwalk. Strikingly, these beneficiaries of our compassion program turned out to be among the most courteous, respectful customers, despite their slightly disheveled appearance and, occasionally, a noticeable odor. The staff had grown accustomed to patrons who exuded the unmistakable scent of the beach, sometimes coupled with a faint aroma of vodka. So long as these individuals conducted themselves in a calm and routine manner, they were treated no differently from any other customer. One foggy, chilly day during the holiday season, positioned between Thanksgiving and Christmas, a situation unfolded. A call left me as the lone attendant at the back of the shop, with another staff member manning reception and the security guard posted by the entrance. In this moment, I found myself isolated at the back, the cameras serving as passive observers rather than active overseers. It was then that a man, presumably Happy, entered the establishment after being cleared by the front desk. A peculiar chill seemed to fill the room upon his arrival. Happy's attire immediately caught my attention. He sported a well-worn, deeply faded leather duster jacket that seemed to mold to his frame, accompanied by an equally weathered leather cowboy hat. These garments appeared as if they had been his constant companions for years, enduring the trials of time alongside him. Notably, our store policy prohibited the wearing of hats, hoods, or sunglasses indoors. Thus, I was somewhat taken aback that the security personnel hadn't enforced this rule for Happy. Physically, he was an imposing figure, standing at around 6 feet 5 inches, with a build reminiscent of a formidable boulder, large not in the sense of obesity, but rather possessing the strength to toss someone about effortlessly. His aroma, however, was unlike anything I had encountered before. It wasn't merely the scent of unwashed clothes. It emanated an air of death itself, akin to the presence of decaying carcasses concealed beneath his substantial leather attire. Despite my prior exposure to unpleasant odors, this was an entirely new level of repulsiveness, beyond the realm of recently unwashed bodies or minor accidents. In an attempt to maintain my composure, I greeted him with a courteous smile and asked if he'd mind removing his hat, in accordance with our store policy. He responded with a deep guttural grunt as he shuffled lethargically, dragging his feet along the floor. His voice mirrored his appearance, rough, wet, and gravelly, seemingly a product of gargling with gravel. I quickly shifted my focus to customer service, inquiring about his preferences for the day. The encounter, however, was marked by a pervasive, unsettling presence. Notably, he lacked footwear, a revelation I made upon spotting his ankles beneath his coat. One ankle appeared severely bruised and swollen, while the undersides of both feet bore signs of blood and abrasion. His meandering path left traces of blood in his wake as his ragged feet scraped against the concrete floor. These observations raised questions. How had he been permitted entry with such evident injuries, and what circumstances had led him to this state? Suppressing my revulsion, I inquired if he was all right. His response was a retort, leaden with suspicion. "What do you care?" Attempting to diffuse any tension, I invoked the "not my circus, not my monkey's" philosophy, hoping to steer the interaction back to a semblance of normalcy. After all, my aim was to expedite his visit and restore a sense of normalcy to the proceedings. I fetched a collection of compassion grams, weighed out an eighth of cannabis, and decided to make a note to compensate for it later. Throughout this exchange, his intense gaze never wavered. Sensing the unease in the air, I maintained a safe distance from him, positioning myself against the wall to ensure a measure of separation. As he approached, the overpowering odor grew more pronounced. My attempts at politeness continued, and I even invented a special deal, intended solely for those who had journeyed over 10 miles to reach our store. This tactic seemed to work, as he accepted the offered items, albeit without departing immediately. It was during this pause that he revealed the source of his unusual moniker, Happy. He rolled up his sleeve to reveal an arm marred by circular burns, resembling the marks left by a cigar's ember. Among these scars resided a handcrafted stick and poke tattoo, a crude representation of a smiley face, its curves etched into his flesh. With a hint of satisfaction, he informed me, "My name is Happy." In that instant, I felt a gasp of air was a necessary respite, a defense mechanism against the intense stench that enveloped him. The details of his journey, walking all the way from Pasadena, served as a distraction. However, my focus soon shifted back to the task at hand. Ensuring he departed without incident, my inquiries about his preferences were met with a cryptic and ominous response, his eyes exuding a darkness that sent shivers down my spine. Embodying an aura of grime and wilderness, he deviated from the typical crust punk or beach-dwelling veteran who frequented our establishment. His age remained a mystery, falling somewhere between 30 and 50, a testament to the enigma he represented. His appearance seemed to straddle various realms and eras, fusing elements of a quantum misstep with the uncanny essence of historical figures. As he continued to scrutinize me, my instincts urged me to maintain distance, maximizing the barrier between us. A display shelf, a makeshift defense. I considered the best course of action, contemplating the quickest route to safety, should his demeanor escalate. The discomfort in the air was palpable, a stark contrast to the typical laid-back atmosphere of our store. In an attempt to expedite his departure, I unveiled a special offer for him, an effort to satiate him and bid him farewell. This tactic appeared to succeed, as he grunted in response and gradually retraced his steps toward the exit. Throughout this ordeal, the lingering odor of decay clung to the air like a malevolent specter, a grim reminder of his presence. The store's atmosphere seemed to transform in his wake, as if it were exhaling a sigh of relief. Just before exiting, he turned to face me one final time, uttering a cryptic farewell. "See you later." His departure, though welcomed, left behind a residue of dread. Grateful to be rid of his unsettling presence, I silently acknowledged the gods of chance that our paths would not cross again. Inquiring with the security guard about Happy's entry, I discovered an unsettling confrontation. The security guard, upon noticing Happy's bloodied feet, had inquired about his well-being, only to be met with a threat and a derogatory slur. Faced with a situation where he and two young, slight colleagues were outnumbered, the security guard had opted for self-preservation. The cameras, closely monitored by the guard, ensured that swift action would be taken if circumstances took a darker turn. Our definitions of weird differed, but all parties involved shared a sense of relief when the encounter concluded without further incident. Ultimately, the episode left us shaken, requiring the laborious task of cleaning bloodstains with the aid of bleach and gloves. Through it all, our boss acknowledged our need for a reprieve, granting us a fitting reward: free weed. Thus, the chapter of our encounter with Happy closed, leaving us with lingering unease, a tale to be shared, and the relief of having moved beyond the unsettling presence of a stranger who defied easy categorization. Allow me to recount a recent experience that shook me to my very core. A tale that I feel compelled to share, even if it results in a lengthy narrative. I apologize in advance for the extended account, but the events that transpired left an indelible mark on me. Not too long ago, I found myself residing in a women's shelter, a situation I never anticipated being in. Despite the circumstances, I had the fortune of forming profound connections with some remarkable individuals during my stay. Our solace often came in the form of evenings spent at a park just across from a serene temple. There, under the night sky, we would gather, indulge in a mix of drinks and smoke, lose ourselves in music, and engage in heartfelt conversations about our lives. These friends, bound together by our shared experiences of trauma, became a lifeline in this unpredictable period. One particular night stands out in vivid detail. Following hours of revelry at a city party, a friend and I, both in our early 20s, found ourselves far from tired. Instead of seeking rest, we embarked on an impromptu mission to witness the sunrise from the park we had come to know so well. Armed with a fresh round of drinks, we settled in, watching as the first rays of morning light began to paint the world around us. It was a moment of serenity amidst life's chaos. However, our tranquility was shattered when an unexpected sound pierced the calm. The distant strains of R&B and rap music seemed to emanate from the nearby temple. Fueled by curiosity and our slightly inebriated state, my friend and I were consumed by a shared intrigue. What could possibly prompt such music to fill the air at this early hour? Our adventurous spirits propelled us towards the temple as we mused on what kind of person might be responsible for this audacious dawn playlist. Our backgrounds were as diverse as they were complex, both of us being mixed-race Black individuals. In our inebriated curiosity, we approached the temple, its beauty illuminated by the emerging sunlight. Our enthusiasm was short-lived, as the imposing gates denied us entry. Just as our hopes began to dwindle, a figure emerged from the temple's shadows. With an inviting smile, he beckoned us closer and welcomed us inside. He identified himself as the curator of the music that had captured our attention. As we stepped into the temple, our senses were inundated with a mix of awe and trepidation. The man guiding us through the space was warm and amiable, his demeanor putting us at ease. He showed us around, revealing the temple's interior, a harmonious blend of artistry and spirituality. Yet, our exploration unveiled a more enigmatic facet. Rooms furnished with beds, a concept that intrigued and puzzled us in equal measure. The man casually mentioned the affordability of renting these rooms, a proposition that held an undeniable allure for us, given our financial predicament. Initially, his presence exuded positivity, and a sense of camaraderie developed as we engaged in laughter and shared stories. But gradually, our conversation drifted toward subjects that sent uncomfortable ripples through our composure. The casual talk transformed into an unsettling discourse, involving substances and questionable activities. It was an unexpected shift, one that cast shadows over the rapport we had established. The man's comments about women and the ways in which they could be manipulated through substances were deeply unsettling. Moreover, his familiarity with our routine, observing us from his window as we gathered at the park, struck a disconcerting chord. This eerie insight into our lives raised questions about his motivations and intentions. As the conversation continued, his demeanor began to waver, displaying an erratic and unsettling energy. It was then that I noticed he had discreetly shut the door, trapping us within the room. A rising sense of unease coupled with the sudden realization that we were not free to leave evoked a chill that crawled down my spine. In an attempt to regain a semblance of control, he redirected our attention to music, assuring us that he had a song to play that we would adore. What followed was far from what we expected, a haunting and disconcerting chant that emanated from the speakers at an ear-splitting volume. The accompanying video depicted scenes of brutality, a stark contrast to the idyllic morning we had set out to experience. Our pleas to lower the volume went unheeded as the man chanted along fervently, his enthusiasm bordering on obsession. A rapid escalation of events led to the man's transformation. His once affable demeanor twisted into something unsettlingly alien. His face contorted, his laughter morphed into a manic frenzy, and his eyes radiated a fevered intensity. It was a grotesque transformation, a manifestation of something beyond the realm of normalcy. I found myself paralyzed, caught between the fight or flight response. My friend, on the other hand, chose the former, asserting her dominance with a threat to confront him physically. As we made a desperate bid to escape, panic surged within us. Every corner of the room seemed to close in, amplifying the terror that gripped us. Our attempts to leave were thwarted by a locked door as his laughter trailed us, an eerie soundtrack to our frantic movements. We managed to break free from his grasp, propelled by a combination of fear and adrenaline. Despite my own heightened anxiety, I observed my friend taking charge, her assertive stance guiding us towards safety. The aftermath of the encounter was a maelstrom of emotions. Our minds wrestled with the inexplicable sequence of events, the unnerving shifts in the man's behavior, and the realization that our judgments had led us astray. The questions that surfaced were met with a silence born of fear, and the implications of our vulnerability weighed heavily on our minds. The sinister possibility that our substances were tampered with added another layer of complexity to an already harrowing ordeal. The full gravity of the experience is difficult to encapsulate in words alone. The abrupt metamorphosis of a seemingly ordinary individual into a creature of grotesque demeanor, the pervasive unease that settled in our hearts, and the stark reminder of our vulnerability in an unpredictable world all coalesced into a nightmarish tableau. It serves as a cautionary tale about the unsuspecting paths we tread and the unforeseen dangers that may await. This unsettling encounter lingers as a stark reminder of the darkness that can seep into the most unexpected corners of our lives. The temple, once a symbol of serenity, became a stage for a disturbing performance. Our choices, driven by curiosity and naivety, led us down a treacherous path, leaving us to confront the unsettling truth that dangers often present themselves as innocuous opportunities. As I reflect upon the night's events, the gravity of the situation continues to ripple through my thoughts, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the inherent unpredictability of life's journeys. A new member joined our team, making a lateral move from a different department within the company. What set this individual apart was a substantial degree of hearing impairment, rendering him capable of discerning only the loudest sounds. Consequently, his ability to participate in spoken interactions was limited, and he heavily relied on lip reading to comprehend the discussions around him. In response, we adapted our communication approach, ensuring we faced him directly while speaking and taking turns to converse. At the outset, his integration into the team appeared smooth and promising. However, as time progressed, a disconcerting shift in his behavior became evident. Inexplicably, he began engaging in unwarranted and inappropriate comments, directed not only at me, but also at the sole other female colleague on our team. These comments included chiding inquiries about tasks like preparing coffee and delving into offensive, archaic jokes aimed at women. A significant facet of my role encompassed providing him with comprehensive instructions regarding customer requisites and expectations. Regrettably, his adherence to these directives was marked by frequent lapses, inevitably leading to a surge in customer complaints. Consequently, I found myself often needing to apprise him of the necessity to rectify his work to align with the original specifications. Tragically, these discussions often culminated in confrontations, with him audaciously venting his frustration in my direction, as if my insistence on compliance were the source of his predicament. As the cycle of such confrontations continued, my tolerance began to wane, compelling me to address him directly. My statement was unequivocal, emphasizing that had he executed his tasks with precision from the outset, the grievances voiced by customers would have been altogether precluded. His response to this candid evaluation was one of indignant anger, struggling to accept this feedback. This tension-laden situation marked an inflection point in our interactions, hinting at more unsettling developments to come. The ensuing weeks bore witness to increasingly bizarre behaviors. He adopted a confrontational stance, physically blocking doorways and regarding us with an unsettlingly sinister grin, challenging us to respond. One particularly uncomfortable instance occurred when he obstructed the entrance to the office occupied by the other female colleague and me. This event unfolded with an air of sinister provocation, as though he was daring us to react. Mindful of the situation's precarious nature, we continued our ongoing work-related dialogue, pointedly ignoring his disruptive presence. After a protracted duration, he eventually relented, vacating the space. Another alarming encounter took place within the confines of the company's warehouse. Assigned the task of organizing materials in a remote area, I was acutely aware of the security camera's gaze, which surveyed the primary thoroughfares but omitted the interstitial spaces between storage units. Fueled by a gnawing apprehension, I foresaw his incursion into this isolated domain. Alarmingly, my premonition bore fruit as he unceremoniously invaded the room, his trajectory aimed squarely at me. Attuned to the escalating tension, I promptly exited through an alternative exit, hastening my retreat to the vicinity of our team's communal workspace. In a bid to discern the legitimacy of his presence, I referred to the security footage. The footage underscored the unsettling nature of his incursion, a prolonged loitering in the room, devoid of any apparent justification. This incident further underscored the tenuous thread by which his actions were tethered to legitimate purposes. Alarmed by these developments, I confided in a male coworker who offered his support and companionship in areas situated away from the main team space. This was an attempt to insulate ourselves from his increasingly erratic and unsettling behavior. While I maintained a focus on my professional obligations, the specter of encountering this volatile individual loomed over my daily activities. I shared his identifying characteristics, such as his physical appearance, tattoos, and the description of his vehicle, with my family, mitigating the risk of them encountering him unawares. I also proactively severed connections with him on various social media platforms, reinforcing the boundaries I sought to establish. However, the story did not conclude with my individual struggle. Subsequent revelations emerged, casting an even darker hue on his character. A fellow teammate revealed an incident of extreme discomfort, whereby he had brazenly groped the upper thigh of the other female colleague, violating her personal space and boundaries. Witnesses to this incident were unsure of how to react, leading to her freezing in distress. This unsettling episode served as a breaking point. Resolute in my determination to rectify this untenable situation, I formally lodged a complaint with our Human Resources Department, elucidating every instance of intimidation, degradation, entrapment, and harassment that he had subjected us to. The gravity of these allegations was undeniable, prompting the company to act swiftly. Consequently, he was terminated from his position, a testament to the gravity of his actions and their incompatibility with a healthy work environment. His departure, however, was not devoid of drama. Upon being escorted off the premises, he retorted that this was an act of retaliation. The implication was clear. My steadfastness in confronting his inappropriate behavior had earned me his enmity. This disconcerting parting shot served as a reminder of the toxic dynamics that had festered. Interestingly, the managerial response to our concerns remained ambiguous at best. Despite the mounting evidence of his disruptive behavior, there was a recurring pattern of dismissal. Managers proffered explanations that bordered on denial, attributing his actions to misunderstandings, language barriers, or his hearing impairment. This response belied a fundamental misunderstanding, that a disability does not absolve an individual of accountability for their actions, especially when those actions disrupt the workplace and inflict emotional distress upon others. As the dust settled post his departure, a silver lining emerged. The atmosphere of openness prompted by my actions encouraged other female colleagues to step forward with their own accounts of his inappropriate conduct. Their voices echoed similar narratives of discomfort, which had been stifled under the weight of inaction. In these instances, too, managers had dismissed their concerns, seemingly reluctant to confront the issue head-on. The common thread in these responses was the fear of potential legal repercussions due to his disability. However, the collective weight of our complaints necessitated action, culminating in his dismissal. In reflection, while I abhor the pain and distress he inflicted upon my colleagues, I can't help but acknowledge that the collective effort to confront his behavior was pivotal in finally securing his removal from our workplace. In dismantling the tolerance for inappropriate conduct, we affirmed the value of a respectful and inclusive work environment. This ordeal underscored the significance of holding all individuals accountable for their actions, irrespective of their personal circumstances.